Hey there. Okay, so here is your past life spread, your next past life spread. So again, we're going to go to where you are. We're going to see what you did with the majority of your time. We're going to go over an important day with the relationship and feelings involved. Another important day, the death and the lesson learned, and we'll get hints of time throughout. Okay. So, again, all I'm going to do is relay to you images and impressions coming through, and your job is to make connections where you can, and I'll try to help. So, to start off, we got the Americas card, and it immediately felt like we're going to South America, and it was putting me in what felt like a very, highly civilized society, not what we would think of as, it's almost like it feels like a community, like almost tribal, but it's large, like very, very large, and it feels like very advanced and civilized, and particularly lots of something having to do with textures, like different textures for cloths and clothing, and or like textiles. So almost like if you were to Google South American, maybe it's almost like, I want to say, like ancient, or just like a very long time ago, but like Google something where it would have to do with South American tribe or community from very, very, old times, having to do with textiles, like creating a cloth or a certain design or a certain cloth coming from there, from the fiber of the area. There's something about that. So it feels like this is a place of producing goods. Almost like, and I almost feel like there is a trade aspect, but it doesn't feel like modern trading. It feels like trading both locally, but even if it is foreign, it's almost like it would all be from neighboring countries rather than European or anything like that. So it feels like we're looking at that kind of place, a very productive place, where there is a lot of almost it feels like wealth. So let's see what's going on. So this also feels like a male. So we're looking at the life of a male. Okay. This place might. It feels like, okay. So if they give me the structures, it's like this place would have almost I hate to say pyramid because it's so typical, but it does feel like there's something having to do with a pyramid. I'm trying to see. It's almost like what it's coming through is I think it's called El Dorado, or a lost. It feels like, oh, it's the lost city of it's almost like spinning a city where they spin gold, like that kind of thing. Even though I don't think that's a literal translation, but that's what it feels like. So there's something about this though that's coming through to. I feel like it would be a message for you in regards to wealth, or something about a theme of materialism versus non-materialism, or having value in material goods. So if you're playing with that theme in your life, the concept of spirituality and also being a consumer, or owning things, or putting value on material things, if that's a theme playing in your life, or if you've had thoughts about that, I feel like what's coming through more than anything is a message of you can have both, or it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be what's it called, having money and being spiritual doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. You can have both. I don't know if that's something that you've even thought about, but I feel like that's what's coming through for whatever reason. So any connections you could be making beyond that would be if you've ever had a pull towards South America. I'm trying to see where in South America, but it's almost like I wouldn't even know where to start, because I'm not getting pulled towards the Amazon. I'm not getting pulled towards a Peru feel. I don't know. It's just not really pulling me anywhere, but it just feels like it's this place in South America, and it's almost like it's carved out. If South America had a canyon of some kind. I don't know if they have any canyons But anyway, that's just something else if you want to Google and try to figure things out yourself. But again, it does feel like also textiles, making connections with the textiles. If you're someone that, like, how do I say this? Like, so I guess it's just like if you've been drawn towards textiles, or about, like, if one of your highest senses or sensory, like, I guess, it's hard to, this is very hard to articulate, so I really apologize, but it's almost like if you enjoy feeling things. I know that sounds so weird, but that's what I can't explain that any differently, except if you're someone that enjoys feeling things. Like, if you like to touch things as you pass by, or even, it could be particularly clothing, if you are very particular about your clothing, or if you are, like, sensitive to texture or touch, or, like, sensitive, like, some people, like, are weird about, like, tags on their clothes, like I am. It's kind of, like, it annoys me kind of thing. Like, if you're extra sensitive about that, I know it's random, and if you don't connect with that, that's perfectly fine, but that's just what is coming through, so I'm just telling you what's coming through. Let's see. Also, the idea of, like, it's like the idea of, like, a community, but also if you're someone that likes the idea of, like, a secluded community, almost like, again, this feels like it's kind of hidden, and it's very, like, private, and it almost feels like it would be isolated. It almost feels like an island, but, like, not surrounded by water, like an island on land. I know that sounds so weird, but that's what I want to say, is that this place is like an island on land. So that can be a connection in, like, random ways. You'd be surprised, like, if you're someone that is very into security of your home, or if you're, like, into security of your property, if you're someone that likes to have, like, a fence, like, even if it's plants, you know, that is a divider kind of thing. I know it sounds odd, but that would be a connection too, because this place is very much like it has a perimeter of some kind. Okay, well, let's go to what you did for the majority of your time, but keep making connections where you can. When it comes to this, the textiles, the kind of, like, the privacy thing, the wealth thing, or the money issue or wealth issue, if not an issue, but, you know, just the theme or thoughts or whatever, and then whatever else I was talking about. So keep making connections. Now, this is the Protector and Guardian card, and it feels like so the guy they're showing me, the aspect of you in this life is, like, super strong, like, super, I feel like he's, like, super tall and broad and, like, built just largely. And it's almost like a genetic, like, lineage thing where it's almost like your family are, like, your dad and his dad's dad or whatever. It's like a lineage of, like, almost like security guards, but of a very, like, sacred, or, like, very high, not high, it's sacred, but it's more about, like, valuable, of a very valuable place. It's almost like, let's pretend they kept a vault somewhere where they kept their most prized pieces that they've created, and you would be the, like, security guard of that vault, which is not, like, it's not a nothing job. Like, it's not just, like, a random security guard job. It's something that, it's like you were given it again because it's, like, in the lineage kind of thing. Like, you were built to protect that, if that makes sense. That's what it feels like. So if you find in your current life that you are, what's it called? Again, security comes up, privacy, protective. If you're introverted in the way of, like, just, like, you might, like, be someone that can talk to anyone and get along with everyone or whatever, but you might keep to yourself, like, your more innermost part of you, which I guess, you know, isn't, like, super rare, but it's just something that's coming up. Also, if you are weird about, like, people leaving their stuff out, I know it sounds random, but if, like people, if you ever hear, like, oh, I keep my door unlocked or something like that, that might, like, trigger you, like, I don't know, just like security issues may trigger you. So if you read or hear about security issues, or, you know, in the neighborhood or on TV or whatever, where there's a break-in or whatever it is, if that's something that has triggered you before, or something that really like bothers you for some reason, that could be a connection to there. Furthermore, there's also something about the family lineage coming through. Like, if you're someone that really values your ancestral lineage or your heritage, or finding out more, if you like to sleuth, you know, into like the family tree and see who you're related to, if that's interesting to you. If you are, it's interesting because you could have chosen to come back into this life where you would be someone that would not be mistaken for anyone but your family member. Like you might be the spitting image of your father, or the spitting image of your grandfather, or something like that. If that's the case, that would be a connection, and if not, that's fine. But that's that would be a connection here. What else comes through here with this card? Keep making connections on your own when it comes to the protector and guardian card. Could mean you're protective of your loved ones. Could mean, honestly, based on what this feels, that you might be someone that gets really focused in on what you're supposed to be doing, where you neglect your own well-being. So if that's the case, make sure that you are aware of that, and that you don't do that. Almost like, don't be a workaholic. If anyone has ever like joked about that with you, there might be some truth in that kind of thing, and just make sure you're taking care of yourself. So keep that in mind, and keep making connections where you can. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the next, to the first important day. So here, for the first important day, we have Mother Nature card, which means usually there's a natural disaster happening. And the relationship card to go with it is the Friends card. And then here we have Neutral. And I want to say, I feel like it feels like muddy and floody is what it feels like. So muddy and floody. And it feels like there's something about you not leaving your post, even though, this is interesting. I feel like I've had a reading that's similar to this, about like someone guarding like something sacred, couldn't leave. But that's what this feels like again. And it's almost like, hold on. It's almost like there's like your friends were telling you to go, but you stayed with your post, and it's like this, like it feels like almost like you should have died or something. And this Neutral card for the feeling thing is coming in because what it feels like, I feel like this is why this day is important. On this day, it feels like you put up a wall because you thought you were going to die doing your duty. And there's a wall that's going up about almost like, that's, you know, when you made that choice, it's like you made the choice, like, okay, I can go and like run for cover kind of thing, or I could stay here and kind of go down with the ship. And that's what it feels like. And it's like you made that choice to go down with the ship. And it's like there's something that shifted in the mentality and mindset of this man once that choice was made, thinking he was going to die most likely. And it's almost like, when he made that choice, the choice like created this wall that went up again, that it's almost like it cut off his emotion so that he wouldn't be scared, or he wouldn't be cowardly, or he wouldn't be like worried or frightened, or you know what I mean, about dying basically. So this wall is coming up. So any connection you can make to what I'm saying here, it could be one that you might have actually come back into this life to be fearful of a few things, but it can be one like to be fearful of something enough that you are being forced to face it, maybe on a continual basis. The only thing that comes to mind would be like health. Like, this is an example. It's not like I'm not saying it pertains to you, but just an example would be if someone is faced with like the potential, the cancer, you know, so it keeps coming back and then going away and coming back. So there's never like a moment to rest your mind, if that makes sense. And that's what it feels like is, if you were to be going through anything in this life, if there's a theme that comes up in your life, in this life, where it kind of doesn't let you rest, whether it's health or not. I mean, it could be a relationship, it could be anything, but where it just doesn't like let you rest your mind and be at peace in your mind. So if there's anything that comes to your mind when I'm talking about that kind of thing, a theme in your life that comes up that doesn't really allow you to have peace of mind in the long run, that would be from this, is what it feels like. Because it feels like the fear that almost should have been acknowledged was completely like cut off, like almost like cutting off your a human part of you. So in your current life, you could have come back to be extremely, you might be someone that feels emotions like very, very deeply, because you're making up for what happened here, or you could have trouble feeling your emotions on a deep level, because this wall would still be up, you see? So it can go either way with these connections. Like I said last time, like direct connections or opposite connections. So keep that in mind if that speaks to you. So make connections where you can with this. I don't really know what's coming through here, except for if you can connect with, if you're in your life, if it's either one, hard for you to like feel very close and like be able to be vulnerable with people kind of thing, with like close friends, or it takes a while to actually become a close friend kind of thing, that could be it from this wall going up. Also again, you know, with these friends, like this whole thing is like the mentality he'd never see these people again. So it could be in your current life where you're someone who doesn't allow yourself to get too close to people because, and you don't know why, but it'd be because of the wall that had to go up against like you feeling like remorse about not seeing these people again. So it's kind of an interesting feeling, but if you don't connect with that, that's fine, but keep making connections, because I feel like there was something with this card that you might be able to connect with. What else? Oh, floods in the mud. Yeah, so if you have anything having to do with like a fear of flooding or a fear of a security issue having to do with weather kind of thing, like maybe you're weird about lightning or strikes or something, or I don't know, like maybe it's flooding itself, or tornadoes, or whatever it is. If you have any kind of phobia when it comes to a certain kind of natural disaster, but in this case I feel like it's mudslides, or it would be flooding, mudslides, or just like hardcore rain, like maybe you don't like driving in the rain. I know it's kind of random, but that kind of thing would be a connection here. So keep making connections where you can, all right? And let's go to the next important day. Here's marriage card, and this is the karmic card for the relationship. And when I put this down, I feel very much like this person would be in your life today, and this is betrayed. So what I think is happening here, what it feels like is coming through, is something about very, that it came like right after this. It's not too far in the future. It's almost like a reaction to this or a consequence of this. And it feels like, it's almost like your family, because I do feel like you had a family, and it feels like your family took off, and it's almost like this place was really like, I want to say there's like, it was like, I think everyone like just left. Like I think it was completely destroyed, at least past the point of anyone coming back for a while. And it's almost like you survived it by getting really high up, you know, like that kind of thing. Like almost like it was almost by a miracle you survived it, but you survived it is what it feels like. But you couldn't, it's almost like you went to go find them after, and they wouldn't come back with you, or they wouldn't reunite with you. It felt like, I don't know, there was some, it's straight, it almost feels like your wife went back home with, or went with her family, and like, I don't know like how it works, but it feels, and I don't even know if it's a wife, quite frankly. I mean, this is the marriage card, but back then, you know, I don't know if they have marriage or unions or whatever it was, but the person that you have that you're a partner with, and I do feel like there is like a family, so I feel like there's like at least a kid in there, but it feels like she like went back home with her parents, like that kind of thing, and like left you, and just that's it. And so I don't know what that's about, but if you've had any unresolved issues with anyone in your life where you were out of control, like where you didn't have control in the situation and you felt like nothing you could do could fix it, and is that kind of feeling in your life, any relationship, it could be romantic, likely we're talking about that, but it doesn't always mean that. So just keep that in mind. But if someone is coming to mind when I say that, then that would likely be a karmic relationship here. So the feelings of betrayal, obviously that makes, sense, because it's almost like he felt deserted. Which it was kind of like an abandonment. It feels odd. I feel like there's more to the puzzle, but it's almost like they're not showing me the whole piece of everything because it's not really important what happened. What's important is that it did happen, which that in itself coming through, if that makes any sense to you, that it's important. It's not important how it happened, it's just important that it did happen, if that can apply to anything, because sometimes little sayings like that come through for a reason. So if anything comes to mind when you hear that, keep that in mind. It's coming up for a reason, that's all. So also if you have, if there is something that triggers you in this life with people and how you're treated, betrayal might be what you consider to be the worst thing a friend can do or a loved one can do. If that's the case, that would be a direct connection here. It also might mean that it takes a while, again, for you to warm up to people or to get into relationships. Let's see what else. It could be also, there's one more thing coming through possibly, where if you were ever the person who did the leaving in this life, if you were ever on the end, the one that did the leaving or the one that, whatever happened here, but it's switched, that just means that it's karma playing out kind of thing. And if you're holding on to any guilt over any of your actions from your past, it's time to just kind of step back and see that every choice you made in your past is forgivable because it was the right thing to do at the time. Otherwise you wouldn't have made that choice. So you have to, no matter what, you do have to forgive yourself. It's not necessarily letting yourself off the hook and, letting yourself like easily off the hook. Oh, I can forgive myself for everything then. It's not like that. It's like being like truly like, like forgiving yourself, like, but being aware and acknowledging your responsibility in whatever scenario is coming to mind, if any is coming to mind. But keep making connections where you can. And when it comes to all this right here, because this can also explain, if you, let's say, are married or were married and it is, if there's any like issues in the marriage or will be, or whatever, again, it doesn't have to be marriage, it can be, just whatever relationship you're in, and you're having issues that you feel relate to this kind of thing, where it's like, honestly, I feel like maybe trust, something like that, like trusting someone. Just remember it could come from this and not necessarily what's really there. So really try to use your intuition to feel out everything. If you're doubting or you're feeling yourself, yourself putting a wall up again or something like that. If you do, just make sure you're like, again, feeling out the situation and feeling where the source of that feeling is coming from. Like, why is that there? Is it from here or is it from what's going on currently, right? So keep that in mind. Now let's go to the death card. Here is the disease and illness card. And I want to say what happened, what it feels like is that from this, what happened here, the flood, it feels like there was a lot of like, you were in water for a while and lack of sleep and a lot of like, there's just a lot of like the mentality of it, the stress of it, I feel like affected your body so much. It's almost like you got sick and you got like almost like it almost feels like a chronic croup cough or something, like a chronic cough or a chronic something with your chest and the like a just like a coughy thing, or I don't know, something with breathing, and it feels like basically like something in your chest or lungs, basically. So in your current life, if you have any issues having to do with breathing, the chest lung breathing kind of apparatus in your body, Let's see what else. Or if you're someone that gets a cold or the flu or pneumonia or bronchitis, that kind of thing, you know, like those wintry kind of flu-ish things. If you get that every year, or if that's something you get a lot, that could be a connection as well. The only other thing would be too, if you've ever had like any fear of dying young, that would come from this as well, just because it feels like he did like it like slowly but surely got to him. So it's almost like, I want to say within a couple years, like no less than 5 years, I feel like he died. But it was like from this worsening condition. So if you ever had any like fear of that kind of thing, dying young at all or anything like that, that could link to these kinds of things as well. So just something to consider. Now the lesson here, this is enlightenment. And what I feel like happened was when you stayed here, it was like a test of priority and value, and you put the value of your work above the value of like your own life. And here's the tricky part about this kind of thing is it feels like, well, you're a product of your time, you're a product of your community, you're a product of how you were raised. And you were raised, if you had that job, that, you know, if you want to honor yourself or honor the family, you stay with that job, right? But on a soul level, it's like the honor of that job isn't necessarily more important than your life, like than living. Because like living is above all, you know, like living above image, right? Like here it feels like this aspect put his image above what's really mattered, which again was not just his life, but also like he had a family, so he was going to give up his family for the honor of like this work. And I mean, it's admirable, but it's like, I feel like the message in this is take a step back, look at the big picture, make sure that you're prioritizing things that are meant to be prioritized. And let's see, what else does it say? I feel like the Enlightenment card also has to do with this, because there was some learning to be done here that didn't get learned. There was like this short-sightedness in this person. It was almost like, again, like his job was his life, and like there was something about him that couldn't really see past his own nose. Almost like not willing to question things. And I feel like you can either make a connection with that in itself in a way where it's like, in this current life, are you someone that is curious, that is questioning things, that is exploring, that is pushing boundaries? Like that kind of thing would make a lot of sense, because this person didn't learn the lesson. And I feel like that's where the lesson comes through here. Again, with this is the Enlightenment card. They were meant to become enlightened in the way of being self-enlightened, in understanding what is valuable, what should we prioritize in the end, you know? Is it the image, or is it just is living? You know what I mean? So what's more important? And, you know, there's still a lot of people in this world, so many, that feel like the image is life. And that isn't the case here. And I feel like, if anything, that would just be a message, again, about prioritizing what truly is ultimately valuable, especially when it comes to decision making. You want to make sure that if you're making any decision making, that your mindset is 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, however it's in the future. For a moment, put yourself in the future and look back, and you want to make sure you don't resent your choices and decisions that you make, you know? Which I guess sometimes is like a little message about checking the ego. Like, make sure you check the ego. Like, we all have to do it. There's no shame in that. Like, we're human. But that's just another little thing coming through. But keep making connections where you can when it comes to the Enlightenment card, okay? Because it feels like, really, your current life, you might be just really going full force and taking advantage of the opportunity to expand and to be aware and to question things and be curious in the ways that this person could not. So it feels like, almost like in that way, it's a continuation. And so there's your past life. I hope you enjoyed it, were able to make some connections. And yeah, thanks for letting me read you.